Oh, I didn't see you standing there. Good morning. My name is Private Mac, and I'm with the 10th Cavalry. I'm part of Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Buffalo Soldiers Heritage and Outreach Department. And today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about buffalo soldiers. Now, one of the questions we always ask, no matter where we are, is, do you know what a buffalo soldier is? Oh, oh, you don't? Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to tell you. Well, a buffalo soldier was your first professional African American soldier in the United States military. This was after the Civil War. See, there were other African American soldiers that served before it. They served in the Revolution, the War of 1812, the Mexican American War, and in the Civil War. But you see, these men were considered volunteers. They could only serve during time of war. Or else, on the other hand, in 1866, Congress passed the Military Reconstruction Act, which allowed 6 African American regiments to be formed. The 9th Cavalry, 10th Cavalry, and you had 4 infantry regiments, the 38th, 39th, the 40th, and the 41st. We were considered professionals because after that act was formed, this now allowed me, the African American male, to serve in the peacetime army. I could do this for as long as I want. I could do this for 3 years, or I can do this for 33 years and I can retire. And there were benefits to me being in the military. You see, this uniform that you're eyeballing and wondering how you can get a hold of one, well, at the end of this filming, we'll get you a uniform as well. Now, I was also paid. I don't mean to brag, but I was paid $13 a month. See, that was good money when you consider that the bulk of us soldiers were ex-slaves. This was one of the few good jobs that we can get after the Civil War. Now, my shelter was provided, my horse was provided, and we got the same thing you guys got too. And this was something I was really proud of. In education. Now, it wasn't like the Army wanted us to be the brightest people in the world. But see, one of the reasons why they gave us that was paperwork, was to help with the paperwork. And we didn't mind, because the more responsibility I got, the more stripes I got. Remember that $13 I was telling you? That'll start to go up. And I'll have even more money to send home to my family. Well, I guess you're wondering. And I guess I better get to the gist of this. How did we get the name? Do any of you guys know how we got the name Buffalo Soldiers? Let's see. You don't know. Well, Private Mac can tell you. See, we got this name from the Native Americans. And you won't believe this. They said that they weren't used to seeing the African American male in the white man's uniform. And when they saw us, they didn't know how to go back and tell their family what they saw. So what they did was they looked at us and they saw our skin. They said our skin resembled that of the fur of the buffalo. And our eyes reminded them of the dark, fiery eyes of the buffalo. That was number one. Now the next one was my hair. They said that our hair reminded them of that short, curly fur between the horns of the buffalo. Do any of y'all know what they call that short, curly fur between the horns of the buffalo? Oh, you don't, huh? Well, I guess Private Mac's gonna have to tell you that too. See, they call that the sacred mane. That was the sacred mane of the buffalo. So that's number 2. Now this third one, if you know no other, know this one, because see, by far, this is my favorite of the 3 reasons. Now, the third one was when they saw these men in battle and they seen how brave, how tough, how tenacious they were. They said it reminded them of the biggest, baddest animal out there on the prairie. I bet none of y'all know what animal that is. And you better not say prairie chicken either. That's right, it was the buffalo. See, because of my skin color, because of my eyes, because of our bravery in battle, and because of our hair, they started calling us Buffalo Man or Buffalo Soldier. But, see, we always have these proverbial buts when it comes to history. We don't know everything there is to know about history. We think we do, but we don't, and then we think, you know what I'm talking about. See, we don't know how we got the name Buffalo Soldier. There's about 5 different accounts out there that claim to have given these men the name Buffalo Soldiers. So if you would have came up to me and said, well, Private Mac, I heard it was Harper's Magazine that gave us that name Buffalo Soldier, I couldn't argue with you. Or if you would have came to me and said, well, Private Mac, we thought it was the Cheyenne in Kansas that gave it to the 10th Cavalry because they wore a buffalo robe coat and because of their hair. I couldn't argue with that either. And I couldn't argue with you with any of the others. See, there's no written documentation by the military that say how we got the name Buffalo Soldier, and we haven't been able to find any letters that these men have sent back home to their loved ones stating that they were being called Buffalo Soldiers and how they felt about it. So we really don't know. Now, we're talking today about Buffalo Soldiers. We're talking today about the history of these soldiers. Now, how many of you guys have ever had a first in your life? Yeah. Well, I had one, and I don't mind bragging about my first that I was really proud of. See, I remember the first time they took those training wheels off my bike, and I rode that bike with no training wheels. Man, you couldn't tell me nothing. Now, the Buffalo Soldiers, they had first as well. See, remember I told you we were your first professional African-American soldiers in the United States military? That was a first. And then we had other firsts. See, one of the first superintendents of the National Park System was Lieutenant Colonel Charles Young. And we were some of the first national park rangers. See, when they built these national parks around the turn of the century in California, they had money to buy the land, but they didn't have money to staff them. So they used the military. And us Buffalo Soldiers, we were some of those soldiers that were used. And this was a prestigious assignment. We were proud to have that. We helped to build some of the infrastructure of those parks. We also helped to build one of the first museums that was ever built on a national park. So that was a first. Some of the other firsts that may step a little bit outside the realm of Buffalo Soldiers. Do you know who your first professional African American was that went into the National League in baseball? That was Jackie Robinson. They would have considered him a Buffalo Soldier as well. And we had other firsts. Well, we have your first or your only documented female Buffalo Soldier. Yes, that's right. There was a female Buffalo Soldier at a time when it was against the law for females to be in the military. Well, her name was Cathay Williams. See, at the end, during the Civil War, she was a slave and she was freed by the Union Army. And like so many slaves that were freed by the Union Army, they tended to follow the army around because they felt safe. Well, she was so happy to be freed. She did whatever she could for these Union soldiers. She helped to cook for them. If the uniforms needed mending, she would do that. If they were sick, she would have to take care of that. Anything she could to help these soldiers. And when the war was over, she had a choice in what she could do with herself in the world. She was a free African American woman. But you gotta remember, jobs for women in those days was limited. You were either cooking, cleaning, taking care of somebody's kids, or things like that. This was back-breaking work for very, very low pay. She gets to thinking about that, and she hears her cousin talking about this newly formed African American regiment. That's right, Buffalo Soldier Regiment. Well, she hears what time they're gonna go over there and enlist, so she goes and she throws on a pair of trousers. Oh, I forgot to tell you too, women in those days didn't wear trousers. That was a taboo. So she throws on a pair of trousers and she marches down there to that recruiting office with her cousin and his friend. Now they go to sign up, and when they sign, they just put an X on the paper for their name. Just remember, slaves during those times, or ex-slaves during that time, they weren't educated because it was against the law during the time of slavery for an African American to be educated. Well, Kathy walks up and she goes to place her mark on that paper. But she has a dilemma. Because see, she knew how to write, because when she was with those Union regiments during the war, while she was helping these men with the cooking and mending and helping them when they were sick, they were educating her. They were helping her to learn to read and write and her arithmetic. Well, she goes to place her name on there, but if she put Kathy Williams down on that paper, it's going to throw up a few red flags. Now, I ain't saying that there's a man named Kathy out there somewhere. All I'm saying is that I don't know none. And she probably didn't either. So she's sitting there thinking for a second. And she goes, oh, I got it. Well, she took her last name, which was Williams, and she cut the S off the back end of it. And she placed William on there as her first name. And guess what she used for her last name? Oh, you guessed it, Kathy. She used that as her last name. See, in the military, what do they call you by? They normally call you by your last name. So if the sergeant wanted you, she would have said, Private Kathy, get over here! And she would have came running. She was very smart. See, we have all her records. We have records when she enlisted. We had records when she went in sick. We had records when she was discharged from the military. We also have records later on in life when she applied for a pension. So she was the only documented female buffalo soldier. Now there were others, but we just don't have that documentation on them. But we do on Cathay. So today we were talking about buffalo soldiers. I told you who we were, how we got the name, and I talked to you a little bit about some of the first. Your job is now to go in and do your own digging and find out who these men were and what these men were doing. Because see, I could talk about them all day long. We did a whole lot more than just sit up here and fight the Native Americans. But I want you now to go do some digging. And also, on your free time, get out and explore some of these parks that we have here in Texas Parks and Wildlife. I mean, some of these parks the buffalo soldiers might have went to. And you might be stepping in their footprints. So get out and enjoy some of these historic sites, these national parks, these state parks that we have here. And with that being said, Private Mac is done. And I want to thank y'all for joining me today. And we're going to be doing more of these videos in the future, so stay tuned. Y'all have a great day. Private Mac is out.